I still remember the exact moment my heart started pounding. It was Thursday morning, and I was sitting in the glass-walled boardroom at Techflow Industries in Austin, clutching my laptop like a lifeline. The quarterly board meeting was about to begin, and I had something big to share. Something that could change everything. Dale Crandall, my boss and VP of Product Development, sat across from me adjusting his expensive tie. He'd been eyeing a promotion to Chief Innovation Officer for months, and everyone knew it. The way he smiled at the board members as they filed in made my stomach twist. That smile never reached his eyes when he looked at me. "All right, everyone," announced CEO Margaret Walsh, settling into her chair. "Let's dive into new product initiatives." She glanced around the room. "Jenna, I believe you have something to present?" My palms went sweaty. For over a year, I'd been working on something incredible during nights and weekends. An AI-powered productivity platform that actually understood human psychology. Not just another task manager, but something that could revolutionize how people work. I called it NeuralNest. Dale's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected this. I stood up, my voice surprisingly steady. "Thank you, Margaret. What I'm about to show you represents the future of workplace productivity." I clicked to my first slide, revealing the NeuralNest interface. Clean, intuitive, almost alive. This isn't just another app. It's an AI system that learns how your brain works. It predicts when you'll be most creative, suggests optimal break times, and even detects stress patterns before burnout happens. The room fell silent. Good silent or bad silent? I couldn't tell. I demonstrated the prototype I'd built on my personal laptop. The AI tracked my work patterns, suggested when I should tackle complex tasks versus simple ones, and even recommended which team members to collaborate with, based on their current mental state indicators. It could reduce workplace stress by 40% while boosting productivity by 30%, I continued, my confidence growing. Several board members leaned forward, intrigued. Then Dale cleared his throat loudly. "That's interesting, Jenna, but let's be realistic here." His voice dripped with condescension. "This sounds like science fiction. We're a serious tech company, not a startup garage." The room's energy shifted. I felt my cheeks burn. Dale stood up, commanding attention. "While I appreciate Jenna's creativity, we need practical solutions, not fantasy apps that claim to read minds." A few board members chuckled nervously. "But the data shows," I started. "The data shows nothing concrete," Dale interrupted. "This is exactly the kind of unfocused thinking that wastes resources. We need proven strategies, not expensive experiments." Margaret looked uncomfortable. "Dale, perhaps we should review the technical specifications." "With respect, Margaret, I've been in product development for 15 years. I can spot a dead end when I see one." Dale's smile was sharp. "Jenna's passionate, but passion doesn't equal viability." I felt smaller with each word. The board members who'd seemed interested now looked skeptical. Dale had masterfully reframed my innovation as naive daydreaming. "Perhaps we should table this for now," Margaret said diplomatically. "Let's move on to Q3 projections." I sat down, my laptop screen still glowing with NeuralNest's interface. A year of work dismissed in 5 minutes. Dale caught my eye and gave me a patronizing nod, as if to say, "Nice try, kid." I had no idea this was just the beginning. The next morning started like any other. I grabbed coffee from the lobby cafe, checked my emails, and settled into my cubicle. But at 10:47 a.m., everything changed. "Jenna, can you come to my office?" Dale's voice was different, colder. I walked down the hall, past coworkers who suddenly seemed to avoid eye contact. Dale's office door was already open. Sarah from HR sat in one of his chairs, a manila folder in her lap. "Please sit down," Dale said, not looking up from his computer. Sarah gave me a tight smile that made my stomach drop. "Jenna, this is difficult," Sarah began. "Due to recent budget restructuring, we're implementing workforce optimization. Unfortunately, your position is being eliminated." The words hit me like ice water. "Eliminated? But my performance reviews have been consistently adequate," Dale interrupted, finally meeting my eyes. "But adequate isn't enough anymore. We need exceptional." He leaned back in his chair. "Yesterday's presentation confirmed that we have different visions for this company's future." Sarah slid the folder across Dale's desk. "Your severance package and final paperwork. Security will escort you out within the hour." I stared at the folder, my hands shaking. This wasn't about budget cuts. This was punishment. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, just breathing. My cardboard box of personal items sat in the passenger seat like evidence of my failure. 11 years at Techflow, gone. But as the initial shock faded, something else bubbled up. Anger. Then clarity. Dale had fired me for suggesting an idea that threatened him. He'd seen something in that boardroom that scared him, the possibility that I might outshine him. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He thought NeuralNest was just a presentation. He had no idea it was already a working product. That evening, I sat in my apartment with my personal laptop open. NeuralNest's code filled the screen. Over 10,000 lines I'd written entirely on my own time, on my own devices. Every feature, every algorithm, every design element was mine. I opened a new tab and searched for employment law in Texas. What I found made me smile for the first time all day. Texas had banned non-compete agreements. Dale couldn't legally stop me from building competing software. I cracked my knuckles and opened my development environment. If Dale wanted to play hardball, I'd show him what real innovation looked like. Time to build something that would make Techflow's stock price look like loose change. 2 weeks later, I was living on instant ramen and determination. I'd cashed out my emergency fund and moved to a studio apartment across town. Every day was spent coding, refining, perfecting. NeuralNest was becoming something beautiful. I'd added features that made my original presentation look basic. The AI now integrated with popular work tools, analyzed team communication patterns, and even suggested optimal meeting times based on everyone's biorhythm data. It was like having a personal productivity coach that never slept. On a Tuesday morning, I made my move. I uploaded NeuralNest to Product Hunt with a simple description: the productivity app that actually understands you. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. Pacific and refreshed the page obsessively. At first, nothing. Then a few upvotes trickled in. Then more. By noon, NeuralNest was trending in the top 5 new products. Comments started pouring in. This is exactly what I've been looking for. Finally, an app that doesn't make me feel like a robot. How is this free? My phone buzzed with notification after notification. Users were signing up faster than I could count. Freelancers, remote workers, small business owners, people Dale had never considered important enough to matter. By evening, I had 3,000 active users and climbing. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Emma Rodriguez, a productivity YouTuber with 800,000 subscribers, had discovered NeuralNest through Product Hunt. Her review went live on a Wednesday morning. "I've tested every productivity app out there," she said to her camera, "but NeuralNest is different. It actually cares about my mental health." She demonstrated how the app had suggested she take a creative break right before she hit a wall on a video script. "Look at this," Emma continued, showing her dashboard. "It predicted I'd be most focused for detail work between 2 and 4 p.m. today. I've been trying to figure out my optimal schedule for years, and this app nailed it in 3 days." The video exploded. Within 24 hours, it had 200,000 views and climbing. My user count jumped from 3,000 to 15,000 overnight. The comment section was full of people begging for access. I sat in my tiny apartment, watching the numbers climb, feeling something I hadn't felt since that boardroom meeting. Pride. Not the hollow kind that comes from a good performance review, but real pride in creating something people actually wanted. Meanwhile, my phone stayed silent. No calls from Techflow, no messages from Dale. They had no idea what was happening. But Dale wasn't sitting idle. 3 weeks after my firing, I heard through the grapevine that he'd called an emergency product meeting. Sarah Martinez, a former coworker who'd kept in touch, texted me the details. "Dale pitched something called Workflow AI to the board," she wrote. "Sounded exactly like your presentation, but rougher." I felt my blood pressure spike. He was stealing my idea, or trying to. Sarah sent me more details over coffee that weekend. It was embarrassing, honestly. He kept stumbling over the technical parts. The prototype barely worked. Margaret asked him 3 times to explain how the AI algorithms functioned, and he just kept saying proprietary methods. What did the board think? Skeptical. Really skeptical. One guy asked if this was related to your presentation from last month. Dale went red and said his idea was completely original. I stirred my latte, thinking, Dale was panicking. He'd seen NeuralNest's success, it was getting harder to ignore, and now he was scrambling to create a competing product. But he was building a house without a foundation. How long until they plan to launch? I asked. Dale promised a working demo in 6 weeks. I smiled. 6 weeks to build what had taken me over a year to perfect. This was going to be fun to watch. The attack came on a Tuesday night. I was pushing a new update to NeuralNest when my monitoring alert started screaming. The app was being hit with massive traffic, not users, but malicious requests designed to crash the servers. A DDoS attack. Someone was trying to take down my platform. I spent 4 hours fighting it, implementing emergency security measures and rerouting traffic through backup servers. By 3 a.m., NeuralNest was stable again, but I was exhausted and suspicious. The timing was too convenient. Dale's demo was 3 weeks away, and suddenly my app was under attack. I had no proof, but my gut said this wasn't random. Instead of getting angry, I got strategic. I used the attack as a learning opportunity, implementing military-grade security protocols that made NeuralNest virtually unbreachable. I also documented everything: server logs, attack patterns, timing data. When I shared the story on social media, framing it as how a small startup survived a major cyber attack, the response was incredible. Users rallied around NeuralNest like it was their own child. The attack had backfired, creating sympathy and loyalty that money couldn't buy. My user base jumped to 25,000, and I started getting messages from cybersecurity experts offering help. Dale's desperation was showing, and it was making me stronger. The email arrived on a Thursday morning. Venture Dynamics, a prominent Austin VC firm, wanted to meet. They'd heard about NeuralNest through their network and were interested in exploring opportunities. I sat in their glass-walled conference room the following Tuesday, then trying not to feel intimidated by the corporate art and expensive suits. James Wellington, the managing partner, slid a term sheet across the table. $2 million in seed funding for 30% equity, he said. We move fast, and we think NeuralNest has serious potential. The number made my head spin. $2 million. I could quit worrying about rent, hire a real development team, scale properly. But something felt wrong. What's your timeline for exit strategies? I asked. 18 to 24 months. We like quick returns. That was the red flag. James saw NeuralNest as a commodity to flip, not a mission to nurture. I thought about my users, the freelancer who'd messaged me about reducing her anxiety, the small business owner who'd finally found work-life balance. I appreciate the offer, I said carefully, but I need more time to consider. James's smile tightened. Opportunities like this don't wait, Jenna. Then I guess this isn't the right opportunity. I walked out, my heart pounding, but my conscience clear. 2 days later, I found my angels. Literally. Maria and David Chen had sold their wellness app to Google 3 years earlier for $50 million. They'd been quietly investing in startups that prioritized human-centered design over pure profit. When they reached out through a mutual connection, I knew they were different. We met at a small cafe downtown. No suits, no term sheets, just conversation. We've been using NeuralNest for 2 weeks, Maria said. It's the first productivity app that didn't make us feel guilty about being human. David nodded. We're not looking for quick exits or massive valuations. We want to support technology that makes people's lives genuinely better. They offered $500,000 for 8% equity, much less money, but with full creative control remaining mine. More importantly, they offered mentorship and connections to ethical partners. We believe in what you're building, Maria said. Take your time growing it right. I signed their paperwork that afternoon. Finally, I had partners who understood that some things mattered more than money. With their investment, I hired 2 junior developers and a part-time designer. For the first time since my firing, I wasn't working alone. Dale's demo day arrived with the subtlety of a car crash. Sarah texted me updates throughout the morning. He's sweating bullets. The prototype keeps glitching. Then, 20 minutes later, oh no. What happened? Workflow AI just crashed during the live demo. Blue screen of death. In front of the entire board. I sat in my apartment staring at my phone. Part of me felt vindicated, but mostly I felt embarrassed for him. This was what happened when you tried to build complex AI without understanding the fundamentals. Sarah's next message made my stomach drop. He's blaming the dev team, screaming at Marcus in front of everyone. Margaret looks horrified. Marcus was one of the best developers at Techflow. If Dale was scapegoating him for his own failures, the team was probably ready to revolt. Dale just stormed out, Sarah reported. Margaret called a recess. Everyone's talking about how unprofessional this was. I closed my phone and got back to work. While Dale was burning bridges, I was building them. My user count had hit 40,000, and revenue from premium subscriptions was climbing steadily. The universe had a funny way of handling justice. You didn't always have to seek revenge. Sometimes you just had to stay focused while your enemies destroyed themselves. The article changed everything. When Fast Company published the productivity app that's revolutionizing remote work, featuring NeuralNest on the cover, I nearly dropped my coffee. The journalist, Alex Rivera, had spent 2 weeks using the app and interviewing users. In a world of productivity tools that treat humans like machines, Alex wrote, NeuralNest stands alone in actually caring about human psychology and well-being. Creator Jenna Halbrook has built something that doesn't just organize your tasks, it understands your mind. The article went viral instantly. TechCrunch picked it up, then Bloomberg, then CNN. My inbox exploded with interview requests, partnership proposals, and acquisition offers. But the real validation came from the users. The comments section filled with stories of people who'd reduced their anxiety, found better work-life balance, and felt understood for the first time by their productivity software. One comment stuck with me. I've been in tech for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this. Jenna Halbrook is going to change how we think about work. I printed that comment and hung it on my apartment wall. Some days, when the coding got frustrating or the business decisions felt overwhelming, I'd look at it and remember why I was doing this. Dale's name appeared nowhere in the coverage. Nobody asked about Techflow or Workflow AI. The story was about innovation, not imitation. The phone call came on a Friday evening. I didn't recognize the number, but something made me answer. Miss Halbrook, this is Robert Chen from Techflow's board of directors. My blood went cold. I hope you don't mind me calling directly. I got your number from a mutual contact. What can I do for you, Mr. Chen? I'll be direct. We're aware of NeuralNest's success, and frankly, several board members have questions about how we let such innovative thinking slip away. His voice was careful, diplomatic. We're wondering if you might be interested in returning to Techflow in a leadership role. I almost laughed. What kind of role? VP of Innovation. It would be a significant step up from your previous position. Full autonomy, substantial budget, equity package. What about Dale? A long pause. Mr. Crandall's role is currently under review. I walked to my window, looking out at the Austin skyline. 3 months ago, they'd fired me. Now they wanted to hire me back at a higher level, probably for triple the salary. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Chen, but I'm not interested. May I ask why? Because I'm building something bigger than Techflow could ever contain. The line went quiet for several seconds. Well, Robert finally said, if you change your mind, I won't. The acquisition offer arrived via email on a Tuesday morning. $12 million from Dataflow Systems, one of the biggest enterprise software companies in Texas. I stared at the number until my eyes watered. $12 million. More money than I'd ever dreamed of having. Enough to pay off my student loans, buy a house, never worry about money again. I called Maria and David immediately. Congratulations, Maria said when I told them. That's a substantial offer. Should I take it? What does your gut say? I thought about it. Dataflow would probably integrate NeuralNest into their existing platform, strip away the features that made it special, and turn it into just another corporate tool. My gut says we're just getting started. David chuckled. Then you have your answer. But $12 million? We'll still be there in 6 months if you want it, Maria said. But your vision might not be. I drafted a polite rejection letter that afternoon. Dataflow's CEO called personally to try to change my mind, but I stood firm. Some opportunities look like endings disguised as victories. I was looking for a beginning. The betrayal was worse than I'd imagined. My lawyer, Amanda Rodriguez, called me into her office with grim news. We found something disturbing in the patent database. Dale Crandall filed an application for something called Psychological Productivity Interface last month. She showed me the documents. Dale had tried to patent the core concepts of NeuralNest under a different name, claiming he'd invented them independently. Can he do that? Not legally. You have prior art dating back over a year. But he's betting you won't fight it. I felt sick. Dale wasn't just trying to copy my work. He was trying to steal legal ownership of it. What are our options? We file a cease and desist immediately. Then we expose this publicly. Patent fraud is serious business, especially when there's clear evidence of theft. Amanda prepared a press release that laid out the timeline. My original presentation, my firing, Dale's failed demo, and now his patent application. The story wrote itself. When the press release hit the wire services that afternoon, my phone exploded. Business journalists loved stories about corporate misconduct, especially when there was a clear victim and villain. Dale had crossed a line he couldn't uncross. This wasn't just business anymore, it was war. The leaked memo hit Bloomberg Tech like a bomb. Someone inside Techflow, I suspected Marcus from the dev team, had sent internal emails to a journalist. The emails showed Dale explicitly discussing how to recreate Halbrook's concept, and instructing his team to reverse engineer productivity features that matched NeuralNest's functionality. One email was particularly damning. The board is asking too many questions about originality. Make sure our version looks different enough to avoid legal issues. Another, if anyone asks about Halbrook's presentation, stick to the script. Completely different product, totally original thinking. The article painted a clear picture of corporate theft and deception. Dale had not only stolen my idea, but had lied to his own board about it. Techflow's stock price dropped 8% that morning. Their PR department issued a weak statement about internal review of development processes, but the damage was done. My phone rang constantly with reporters wanting quotes. I kept my responses professional, but pointed. Innovation requires integrity. When companies steal ideas instead of fostering them, everyone loses. The tech community rallied around me. Justice for Jenna started trending on Twitter. Other entrepreneurs shared their own stories of idea theft and corporate betrayal. Dale's reputation was collapsing in real time. Techflow's board acted swiftly. By Thursday afternoon, Dale had been suspended pending a full investigation. Margaret Walsh issued a carefully worded statement about maintaining the highest ethical standards and zero tolerance for misconduct. But the real bombshell came Friday morning. The Wall Street Journal published an exposé titled The Productivity Wars: How Idea Theft Backfired Spectacularly. The article detailed everything: my firing, NeuralNest's success, Dale's failed attempts at copying, and the patent fraud. The piece included quotes from former Techflow employees describing Dale's toxic management style and pattern of taking credit for others' work. One anonymous source said, Jenna Halbrook was the best strategic mind we had. Firing her was corporate suicide. Techflow's stock continued falling. Institutional investors started asking uncomfortable questions about leadership and culture. The company that had once seemed untouchable was suddenly fighting for its reputation. I felt no joy in their struggle. This wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. Companies needed to understand that treating employees as disposable had real consequences. Meanwhile, NeuralNest's user base hit 75,000. The controversy had brought massive attention to my platform, but people stayed because the product was genuinely valuable. Sometimes the best revenge was simply succeeding. The TechCrunch Disrupt stage felt surreal. 3 months ago, I'd been fired from a cubicle. Now I was giving a keynote to 3,000 entrepreneurs, investors, and tech leaders. Innovation doesn't happen in boardrooms, I told the audience. It happens in garages, bedrooms, and coffee shops by people who refuse to accept the status quo. I told my story simply and honestly. The presentation that changed my life. The firing that freed me. The journey from unemployment to 100,000 users and growing. They told me my idea wasn't viable, I said, clicking to a slide showing NeuralNest's usage statistics. Our users disagreed. The audience laughed and applauded. But I wasn't done. The most important lesson isn't about building a successful app. It's about believing in your vision when nobody else does. Sometimes the biggest favor someone can do for you is telling you no. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Video clips of my talk spread across social media faster than I could track them. Hashtag Believe in Your Vision became the new rallying cry for dismissed entrepreneurs everywhere. In the green room afterward, reporters surrounded me with questions about Dale and Techflow. I kept my answers focused on the future, not the past. Some victories were best celebrated with grace. The whistleblower came forward the next week. Marcus Rivera, the senior developer Dale had scapegoated during the failed demo, contacted Amanda Rodriguez with devastating evidence. He'd been secretly documenting Dale's unethical behavior for months, including recorded meetings where Dale explicitly instructed the team to copy NeuralNest's features. I couldn't stay silent anymore, Marcus told the investigative journalist who broke the story. Dale destroyed team morale and tried to build his career on stolen ideas. Someone had to speak up. The recordings were damning. Dale's voice, clearly audible, saying things like, "Figure out how Halbrook's app does this, and we need our version to work exactly like hers, just with different colors." The story exploded across tech media. This wasn't just corporate misconduct anymore. It was documented fraud with audio evidence. Techflow's board had no choice. They terminated Dale's employment for cause that same afternoon, which meant no severance package and no references. Within hours, word spread through Austin's tech community. Dale Crandall was unemployable. No respectable company would hire someone with his track record. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. Dale had destroyed his own career through greed and pride. I'd simply given him enough rope. The job offer felt like cosmic justice. Margaret Walsh called me personally on a Tuesday evening. "Jenna, I want to apologize for how we handled your departure. The board has voted unanimously to offer you Dale's former position as VP of Product Development." The irony was delicious. They were offering me my former boss's job. What would that role entail? Complete oversight of product strategy, a team of 35 people, and full budget authority, plus equity and a salary that, well, it would be a significant upgrade from your previous compensation. I walked around my apartment while she talked, looking at the workspace I'd built from nothing. 2 monitors, a standing desk, walls covered with user feedback and feature ideas. "Margaret, I appreciate the offer, but I have to decline." "May I ask why?" "The compensation package is quite generous. Because I'm not looking for a job anymore. I'm building a company." The silence stretched for several seconds. "I understand," Margaret finally said. "For what it's worth, we're proud of what you've accomplished. You've shown integrity and innovation that we should have recognized earlier. Thank you. That means more than you know." After I hung up, I sat in my chair for a long time, thinking about the journey. A year ago, I would have killed for Dale's job. Now his job felt like a step backward. The Series A announcement made headlines across the tech industry. After months of careful vetting, I'd found the perfect lead investor. Ethical Ventures, a fund that specialized in mission-driven startups. They led a $15 million round that valued NeuralNest at $100 million. But the real news was what I did with the funding. Instead of keeping all the equity for myself, I created a generous employee stock option pool and gave equity to my beta testers who'd provided crucial feedback. "Innovation is collaborative," I told TechCrunch. "The people who helped build NeuralNest deserve to share in its success." The story went viral again, but for different reasons this time. Other startups began following my model, sharing ownership with early supporters and core contributors. I also announced the Nest Fund, a $2 million initiative to provide micro-grants to women and underrepresented entrepreneurs working on human-centered technology. "I got lucky," I said in my announcement video. "I had savings to live on while building NeuralNest. Not everyone has that privilege. The Nest Fund is about giving others the same opportunity I had." The applications started pouring in immediately. Stories of brilliant people with amazing ideas who just needed a small push to get started. This felt like the real victory. Not just building a successful company, but using that success to lift others up. The tech gala felt like stepping into a different world. 12 months ago, I'd been eating ramen in a studio apartment. Now I was walking the red carpet at Austin's most exclusive industry event, cameras flashing as reporters shouted questions. I was halfway to the bar when I saw him. Dale stood by the sponsor booths, looking older and tired. He was alone, awkwardly holding a drink, while other attendees gave him a wide berth. When our eyes met, he walked over. "Jenna," he said quietly, "congratulations on everything. You've built something amazing." I studied his face, looking for traces of the smug confidence I remembered. It was gone, replaced by something that looked like genuine regret. "Thank you. I owe you an apology. A real one." He took a deep breath. "I was threatened by your talent, and I handled it terribly. You deserved better." "Yes, I did. For what it's worth, I've learned from this. I'm starting over, trying to rebuild my reputation the right way." I nodded. Holding grudges was exhausting, and Dale had already paid the price for his choices. "I forgive you, Dale, but you didn't just fire me that day. You lit the fuse that led to all of this." I gestured around the room. "Sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is push you toward your destiny." He smiled sadly and walked away. I never saw him again. Building NeuralNest into a household name took 2 more years, but every day felt purposeful. We grew to 2 million users across 6 countries, each one finding ways to work smarter and live better. The platform evolved beyond productivity into something more holistic, a tool that helped people understand their own patterns, reduce stress, and find sustainable ways to achieve their goals. But my proudest achievement was the Nest Fund. In 3 years, we'd funded 500 entrepreneurs from underrepresented backgrounds. 12 of their startups had been acquired for over $10 million each. 23 had reached profitability. Sarah Martinez, my former coworker, became one of our success stories. Her mental health app for frontline workers raised $3 million in Series A funding and was being used by hospitals nationwide. "You changed my life," she told me at the Nest Fund's annual gala. "Not just with the money, but by showing me what was possible." I looked around the room at hundreds of entrepreneurs sharing their stories, networking, building the future. This was the table I dreamed of, not just a seat at someone else's table, but a whole new table built on collaboration and shared success. Outside, Austin's skyline glittered with possibility. Inside, the future was being written by people who'd been told they weren't good enough, smart enough, or connected enough to matter. Standing on the Forbes Women in Tech stage felt like coming full circle. The audience of 5,000 included venture capitalists, startup founders, corporate executives, and students. The next generation of innovators who would shape tomorrow. 5 years ago, I sat in a boardroom and shared an idea that scared my boss so much, he fired me the next day, I began. Best career move he ever made, for me. The audience laughed, but I could see some nodding with recognition. They'd been there too. The tech industry loves to talk about disruption, but what we really need is inclusion. Not just diverse faces in identical roles, but diverse thinking that challenges assumptions. I clicked to a slide showing NeuralNest's current impact: 5 million users, partnerships with Fortune 500 companies, and research showing measurable improvements in workplace mental health. This didn't happen because I was the smartest person in the room. It happened because I refused to let other people define my limits. I paused, looking out at the faces in the audience. Young women with notebooks, seasoned executives taking photos, entrepreneurs scribbling ideas. They say if you want a seat at the table, you have to earn it. But sometimes the table is broken. Sometimes the table was never meant for people like us. I smiled. So we don't ask for a seat at their table. We build a new one. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. But the real victory was what happened afterward. The conversations, the connections, the ideas that would become tomorrow's innovations. As I walked off stage, I thought about that day in the Techflow boardroom when everything started. Dale thought he was ending my career. Instead, he'd set me free.